This new disease, coffee leaf rust, which is new to Hawaii, but it's not a new disease in the coffee industry. Probably the first thing you're going to see is prices are going to go up a little bit because growers like us are either spending more to manage the problem or they're losing yields somewhat, so they're having to get more for each pound of coffee that they can bring in.
Because of the recent introduction of coffee leaf rust, growers are constantly checking their plants and preventing the leaf rust from spreading. And now, the Hawaiian Agricultural Research Center was granted $1.37 million to combat the leaf rust, because on average, it can result in a crop loss of 70% or more. For now, growers will continue to mitigate their crops, protecting them to keep production numbers high and your costs low until the research center can make way on genetic improvements and prevention.
It's been difficult to get federal funding for these small, unique crops. So just getting some federal funding will really boost that research. And Hawaii Agricultural Research Center, they've been growing coffee for a long time. They know the industry. They're going to be the best option to really help us solve this problem.
In Waialua, Hawaii, I'm Thomas Hopper reporting.
You see it right here on your screen. Tropical storm Nicole is expected to make landfall on our state's east coast in just a matter of hours, and it could bring flooding impacts all the way up to Maine. But we are tracking the storm and what we could actually experience right here at home.
Yes, because with thousands of people with tarps on their roofs, or some even still living in tents, we're tracking how the folks in Southwest Florida are preparing for whatever may come.
Live from Southwest Florida, you're watching Fox 4 News at 5.
And tonight we are tracking Nicole with reporters all along our East Coast while keeping you informed right here at home, now exactly 6 weeks after Hurricane Ian. Thank you for joining us. I'm Nadine Yanis.
And I'm Shari Armstrong. We are learning today Collier County Schools, the Lee County School District, and Charlotte County Schools will all be closed tomorrow ahead of Tropical Storm Nicole.
This as parts of Florida are already seeing impacts from this system.
We want to take you live now to Florida's East Coast. This is a look at Melbourne Beach in Brevard County. You can see there the impacts from the storm already there, Nadine.
Yeah, those waves rocking as it pushes against the shore and those gloomy skies. But what does that mean for us here in Southwest Florida? That's the biggest question that people want to know, especially after Ian. Let's go ahead and bring in Fox 4 certified meteorologist Katie Walls. Not easy to see these images, Katie, but what can we expect here?
So for us, we're going to be dealing with 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts picking up as we head through this evening and tonight. You might have already noticed those winds starting to increase, but keep in mind the wind field of this system is monstrous. So we're talking about tropical storm force winds extending 420 miles from the storm center as of 4 o'clock from the National Hurricane Center. The center of circulation is still about 55 miles to the east of Freeport and Grand Bahama Island. It is just shy of becoming a Category 1. We are expecting it to intensify just a touch prior to landfall late tonight. Thereafter, taking it into central Florida, and then eventually moving it through Georgia into South Carolina. For us, though, we're already seeing those winds increase. And again, that's going to be my biggest concern heading into the overnight time frame. So far, those maximum wind gusts hitting 39 miles per hour in both Moorhaven alongside Clewiston. Arcadia now registering a 36 mile per hour wind gust. So for tonight, we're going to be dealing with gusty wind, also the potential for rain showers. We're tracking all of that for you coming up in the next 15 minutes.
All right, Katie, but first we want to take you to breaking news right now impacting the commute in Fort Myers. The traffic lights at US 41 and Gladiolus Drive are out in all 4 directions. We're giving you a live look now. Deputies are currently out there assisting with traffic. Traffic is moving slow in that area, and it is becoming congested, although you can see here it actually is moving since this update. But officials are asking if possible to utilize an alternative route. And just a reminder here, when traffic lights are out at an intersection, you're supposed to treat it as a 4-way stop unless directed otherwise. So a heads up for you as you're commuting this evening.
That's right. Look at this video from Hutchinson Island. This is near Port St. Lucie. You can hear the wind and see the waves slamming into the sand there. This is just some of the footage that we're getting in from our partners on the East Coast. We want to make that very clear. This is on the other side of our state right now as Nicole approaches the shoreline. Danielle Seed is actually in Hutchinson Island right now, giving us a closer look at those conditions we just saw.
On Hutchinson Island, it's one of the several places here in Martin County that's under a voluntary evacuation. Now, the biggest concern for residents here is going to be the storm surge. If you take a look behind me here, you can see the waves starting to come in on the shore, but it was even more of a story a couple hours ago. That tide is now starting to recede. But before this, these waves were crashing up over this foundation, bringing sand with it, crashing up over the road. You can see a little bit of the damage that was left behind here. So the island is currently limited to residents only, and the sheriff's deputy here is urging people to go ahead and get out while they can. The island only has one way in and one way out, and if that road washes out, they'll have to wait for a boat to rescue them.
It's time to get out of here. The waves are definitely coming up over the dune. There's one spot where there's a house under construction, so there's no dune, and his foundation is almost gone now.
So again, the biggest concern for these residents is that the worst of the storm is going to hit at high tide, and it means that these water levels here could come well up into their neighborhood. Reporting from Hutchinson Island, I'm Danielle Seed.
And unfortunately, this is something we are all too familiar with here in Southwest Florida, as so many are still recovering from Hurricane Ian. And one of the hardest hit areas is Fort Myers Beach. So what can be expected with the possibility of more rain and wind there? Let's get right out to Fox 4's Elise Chingary, who is live on Fort Myers Beach to see what that area looks like now. Elise.
Good evening. Obviously, we want to show you what's happening right here on Fort Myers Beach. I can tell you that wind has really been picking up even in the last few minutes. It was drizzling about a half hour ago, but you can see now that that rain has stopped. But I mean, all of the devastation that you're seeing here, obviously talking with neighbors here, they don't want to see, honestly, any more storms. They don't want to experience heavy wind or rain because they're scared of potential flooding. And now for the homes that did survive Hurricane Ian, you can see many of them still have tarps on them, like the ones here. So people are still trying to salvage what they have here throughout this area. So like I said, they don't want to experience any more of that rain or those heavy winds here. And I was also speaking with those shrimpers. You may remember my story last week with Ricky, how many of them are living in tents. Let's show you those tents here today. Obviously, when the wind is picking up, they are blowing. And when I talked with the shrimpers, some of them have actually already left the area. Other people like Cleary Jones, they are waiting here for the next few hours to see just how bad it gets to decide if they should head out of the area. But obviously just hoping that this storm is nothing compared to what we experienced in September.
I don't want to see it again. Yeah. It's demonstrating, you know. If you have another one like this, it'll be trouble. It's supposed to go up in all these coasts. You know, that's what they say so far. You know, so we're waiting to see.
Again, we are here on Fort Myers Beach. I've also been in contact with the town of Fort Myers Beach. You know, something they say you can do throughout this storm. They say that you should have Alert Lee. Now, that is Lee County's mass notification system. That will give you messages through text messages, emails, so you can stay alert that way. They say to also follow along your local media like us who remain in these areas to show you the possibility of what could be happening with this tropical storm. But again, like I said, you know, people just don't want to deal with any more storms. And when we've gone down the road here, you can see there are still some construction crews. Many have actually left since the wind has been picking up, but some of them still remain here. But even going up and down the street, there are some areas where there's a roof, but it's metal, and you know, they're swinging back and forth. So you just have to be careful when you're in areas like this, especially if those high winds come here, because it could just be more of a dangerous situation. So of course, we will remain here on Fort Myers Beach to let you know potentially what could be happening throughout this area. But all we've been seeing and feeling so far is really the wind that, as you can see, has really just been picking up here in the last few minutes. Live here on Fort Myers Beach, Elise Chingari, Fox 4.
Elise, thank you. So hard to see so many still living in tents tonight. Well, let's shift to the governor, because Ron DeSantis is also speaking ahead of the storm tonight and its impacts. The governor says that winds are going to be the main concern, as you just heard from Elise, but there is potential for flooding and up to 3 to 5 feet of storm surge again on the East Coast. In total, 7 counties across the East Coast are under evacuation orders right now here in the state of Florida, but DeSantis says those folks on the East Coast don't need to travel far to be safe.
Need to go hundreds of miles away. Instead, you can go tens of miles inland, stay within the state and still be safe.
Now, DeSantis says the Florida National Guard has activated 600 guardsmen, and there are 7 urban search and rescue teams standing by.
And speaking of Governor Ron DeSantis, we're keeping up with the latest in this year's historic midterm elections with a lot of firsts. Our national team is digging deeper this evening.
A lot of firsts happened in the midterms, from women to racial diversity to the ages of the people elected. We start with women, with multiple states electing women to state and federal positions for the first time. Sarah Huckabee Sanders will be Arkansas's first woman governor. Maura Healey will be the first woman governor for Massachusetts. And Vermont is the last state to send a woman to Congress, with Becca Balint winning seat in the House. And Katie Britt is the first woman elected to the Senate from Alabama. When it comes to racial diversity, Marquane Mullen will become the first Native American senator from Oklahoma in nearly a century. Summer Lee is the first black woman elected to Congress from Pennsylvania, and Wes Moore will be Maryland's first black governor. We also have the first person from Generation Z elected to serve in Congress. Maxwell Frost won a House seat from the 10th Congressional District in Florida. He's 25 years old, which is the minimum age to be a member of the House.
I was at a crossroads and didn't really know what I wanted to do, and connecting with my biological mother, hearing about her story, hearing that she had me at the most vulnerable point in her life, really reaffirmed what I believe in and why I ran for Congress.
Ballot measures around abortion got new attention in the midterms, months after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. In Kentucky, a measure aimed at denying any state constitutional protections for abortion failed. California, Michigan, and Vermont all voted to protect abortion rights. We've also been following the 5 states with slavery on the ballot: Alabama, Louisiana, Oregon, Tennessee, and Vermont. Of those states, Louisiana is the only one that rejected the change to prohibit slavery as punishment for crime. Opponents there warned about the potential impacts on prison work programs, but those supporting the change said it wouldn't have affected such programs.
Well, still ahead on Fox 4 News at 5.
Boots on the ground and prepared for anything in its way. Coming up, how local volunteers are stepping up to help the underserved communities ahead of Nicole.
And Nicole, right now moving through the Bahamas, taking aim at Florida's East Coast. We're expecting landfall tonight. That's when our winds will be at their strongest. We'll take a closer look at the timeline for what you can expect in your neighborhood next.
We are continuing to keep a close eye on Tropical Storm Nicole, and this is new video out of St. Augustine, Nadine.
Yeah, if you could see the storm causing waves to swell along the bayfront there. Drivers in St. Augustine forced to navigate the flooded roads.
And taking a look at waves crashing at Sexton Park, this is in Vero Beach here.
Yeah, and then further up north on the Florida's east coast, people on Fleming Island also prepared for Tropical Storm Nicole arrival as well. Now, Fleming Island is about 30 miles south of the Jacksonville area. Residents there began bagging sandbags and preparing for any potential flooding that could happen as well. But the big question is, what impacts are we going to have here? Shari, it's heartbreaking to know this is exactly 6 weeks after Hurricane Ian. So many tarps still on so many roofs outside.
And I think for both of us being Floridians, when you hear of a tropical storm, in most situations, you kind of just think it's going to be a little wind and a rain. However, this is something that we are still taking very seriously coming off of Hurricane Ian. We want to give you this live look right now from Bayfront Inn in Naples. We want to bring in Fox 4 certified meteorologist Katie Walls right now, because Katie, you can see that cloud coverage over there. What are you seeing when it comes to impacts here in Southwest Florida?
Even though this would typically be a lower impact system for us, any impacts are on the higher side because of what we're currently going through. So a couple of things. We're going to have gusty winds. Those winds will be picking up through the evening into the overnight time frame. That's when Nicole will be moving on shore. Right now, center of circulation still over the Bahamas. That's where the heaviest rainfall currently is, just offshore. But already it is starting to kick some of those outer rain bands our way at this point. They're light, they're scattered, they're manageable. Currently, some of those showers working through Northport as well as Port Charlotte down toward Punta Gorda, making their way off toward the south and west. Likewise, on the western side of Lake Okeechobee, Clewiston, Whidden Quarter, Moorhaven, all seeing some of that lighter rain. So now let's take a closer look at your hour-by-hour forecast. Heading into this evening, we're going to be dealing with these on and off rain showers, picking up a bit more so in intensity as we head into tonight. So tonight, right around midnight, that's when it's forecast to make landfall near Fort Pierce and then move toward the north and west through central Florida. In so doing, that's going to be our gustiest time frame. 40 to 50 mile per hour winds are expected. Likewise, we will have these scattered rain showers as well. But notice by lunchtime tomorrow, things are lifting off toward the north. Our winds are going to be subsiding by around noon across southwest Florida. Could still have a couple of remnant rain showers in the afternoon, but otherwise big improvements expected as we look ahead to your Friday. As for how much rainfall we could see, unsurprisingly, locations closer to where that forecast is tracking, like Clewiston, Moorhaven, up toward even LaBelle, extending up toward DeSoto County into central Florida. That's where we could see 2 to 3 inches of rain. Otherwise, most of Charlotte, Lee, and to Collier, we're looking at 1 to 2 inches of rainfall. Now, because of the potential, DeSoto, Glades, Hendry are under flood watches until tomorrow afternoon, and that's simply because these areas are already saturated, so any additional rainfall could lead to flooding concerns. And then, of course, the wind. We have tropical storm warnings in effect right now for most of our communities, minus Collier County, because the worst of the wind's going to be away from Collier, so we're not worried about tropical storm force winds down in Collier County. But for the rest of us, you see a whole lot of yellow, and this yellow right here indicates 39 miles per hour and higher. That, in turn, constitutes tropical storm force winds. So that's what we're up against through tonight into tomorrow morning right around 7 a.m. Then heading into lunchtime, that's when all that clears off toward our north and away Nicole goes. So it's really tonight into tomorrow morning that we're going to be dealing with the brunt of these impacts. And then behind this system, cooler, drier air will be building in as we look ahead to your weekend. Check this out. We saw this with Ian. Remember that big temperature drop, that lower humidity? We're going to pull back those morning temperatures to just 60 degrees. Afternoon highs, by the way, on Sunday running in the 70s.
Oh.
We're giving you a live look from New Smyrna Beach right now. This is on Florida's East Coast, where you can see those waves picking up. It's definitely impacted by Tropical Storm Nicole, as we anticipate it making landfall in a few hours.
And we're already knowing that a lot of the East Coast, they don't have any more sand dunes from our previous Hurricane Ian, and so a lot of that now being washed away. And as you see that water approaching, again, this is on the East Coast of Florida. This while parts of Florida are under a state of emergency as we anticipate the arrival of Tropical Storm Nicole. It's very possible the storm could reach Category 1 hurricane overnight.
Right, and if Nicole becomes a Category 1 hurricane, it would be the first hurricane to hit the United States this late in the year in nearly 40 years. Our Dan Grossman shows why concern over this storm stretches far beyond where it makes landfall.
Nicole is expected to make landfall here in Florida this evening, and when it does, it will be the second hurricane to hit Florida in less than 6 weeks. The buildings along the east coast of Florida are ready for this. Building codes were updated years ago to plan for storms just like this one, and this storm surge that could reach concerning levels and flood homes with Nicole. The focus for this storm, though, is the winds, as tropical storm force winds are expected to stretch more than 400 miles from where Nicole makes landfall. It's put a poor taste in the mouths of those here along Florida's west coast, where Hurricane Ian hit 5 weeks ago. Many of these people still have nothing of their homes.
It's a little nerve-wracking for sure. Even 3 inches of water, you know, people just got the mud out. They don't want the mud to come back in. People have been working so hard over the past month. To be set another month behind would be devastating. I don't think that there's a safety issue with this one coming up, but definitely more of just like, if it happens, but it's gonna suck.
One of the major concerns here is these large debris fields that you can see on nearly every street that you pass here in Fort Myers. People have been working tirelessly over the last 5 weeks to get things out of their homes, and they're worried any winds or local flooding could put this hard work back out in the streets, where they're trying to find any semblance of normalcy. Reporting in Fort Myers, I'm Dan Grossman.
Dan, that is the reality for so many in our area, so many of you watching. And right now we are checking in with our partners in other areas of Florida as Nicole approaches the East Coast.
That's right. So Todd Wilson is on Bathtub Reef Beach. This is in Stuart, Florida, where the wind is picking up strong near the shoreline there.
Okay, so we're going to walk up to Rothwitham Beach and take a look at what's going on out here. You can probably see there's a lot of foam here. Wonder where all this comes from. But this is what the beach looks like. Woo! The wind is strong. Look at the waves out there. This is amazing. Now, I understand that you can actually walk down here. I've been here before, and there's like some caves down there that you can walk through some of the rocks, and that's completely gone. Man, the spray is amazing, and a lot of the road has seen a lot of washout. You've got sand, dirt, you name it. Again, I want to show you the ocean here because it is crazy out here. Strong waves, strong wind, water washing up from here all the way over to the road, taking out the road. You've got sand, you've got dirt, you've got all this foam out here, and all the way, either way you go, north or south on MacArthur, the road is eventually being washed out by sand and dirt and waves that are bringing all that water across. You don't see the docks anymore. You don't see the lawn chairs, anything like that. Boat lifts, some of the boat lifts are actually going underwater. So it's a real crazy situation out here. And it's just gonna get worse. Oh, there we go. Woo! In Martin County, Todd Wilson.
Definitely not easy to see. You know, in Fort Myers Beach, they said that it looked as the storm was coming like that lava. You could see it on our East Coast. Thankfully, we're not going to see any of that here, but we are keeping an eye on our crews across the state.
And seeing those videos, those images that might be a little triggering. And you might remember this as you're preparing for the impacts of Tropical Storm Nicole. One thing that we know could potentially impact our community are those power outages. We have an update from Florida Power and Light about how crews are working to keep your lights on. Katie.
Thankfully, we're not concerned about surge, and also the threat for tornadoes will stay low, but we're going to have some rainfall, and those wind gusts are already picking up. We'll dive deeper into the timeline for when you can expect those gusty winds to end in your neighborhood next.
Live from Southwest Florida, you're watching Fox 4 News at 5.
And Fox 4 is tracking the impact of Tropical Storm Nicole as it moves towards our East Coast. Thank you for trusting us this evening. I'm Shari Armstrong.
And I'm Nadine Yanis, as we're really watching what impacts it could mean for us here in Southwest Florida, because today marks exactly 6 weeks since Hurricane Ian ravaged our area. Let's go ahead and take a look outside of the Bayfront camera. This is in Collier County. As we bring in certified meteorologist Katie Walls, we already see that rain coming down, rain and wind, the impacts we're going to see here, right?
That's right. So we're going to have these on and off scattered rain showers through tonight into tomorrow morning, but also those winds, my friend, and they've already picked up. These are the gusts that we've already experienced today. 39-mile-per-hour peak gust in Lewiston alongside Moorhaven. Arcadia, Palmdale reporting 36-mile-per-hour winds, and where we were just looking at live from the Bayfront in 35-mile-per-hour wind gust. These winds will continue to be gusty into the overnight time frame. I'm expecting gusts 40 to 50 miles per hour. So wherever you see the yellow right here? This really shows how broad the wind field is of Nicole. We have tropical storm force winds extending 420 miles away from the storm center. It's one of the reasons why we say a hurricane, a tropical storm, isn't a point on a map. It is expansive, and sure enough, most of Florida will be dealing with these tropical storm force winds. So overnight, we're going to be facing 40 to 50 mile-per-hour winds into tomorrow morning, and then right here by 10 a.m., those winds are lifting off toward our north, and we'll simply be dealing with breezy conditions by tomorrow afternoon. We'll talk more about that rainfall potential coming up in the next 15 minutes.
Well, from Daytona Beach to West Palm, crews of Florida Power and Light are in position, ready to restore power as quickly as possible.
Yeah, this as Tropical Storm Nicole inches closer to Florida's coast. In total, officials say they have 11 staging sites across our state.
I'm Jessica Bruno. We're here in Lantana, where, as you can see, there is already a lot of flooding happening. This is Lyman Kayak Park, just off the intercoastal. You can see a lot of water here, and this isn't even the only area that we're seeing this. Just across the street, there's a very popular restaurant. That parking lot is all flooded. There's a lot of water we were seeing earlier as the storm surge was coming over the seawall. There were some people out there taking pictures and video wanting to see it. Others told us, yeah, I'm going to get out of here. I don't want to stick around to see what happens as conditions get worse. And that was a lot of people's concern, is because the storm is still several hours away. So they're just hoping that things don't keep deteriorating here, because we're just off of a main road, Ocean Avenue. So people here are pretty on edge. A lot of people getting out of the area for today. Reporting in Lantana, I'm Jessica Bruno.
Well, FPL says they've been preparing for Nicole since this weekend. We want to revisit this to make sure that you're clear about restoration efforts and the plan as we move forward. They do tell us they anticipate trees toppling over because the ground is still so wet from Ian when it actually hit.
Yes, and now we want to go to the FPL spokesperson giving us an update on the 11 staging sites they now have ready across the state.
Sites are strategically placed in areas that we think will see the hardest impacts from Tropical Storm Nicole. We have our plan in place. We want our customers to have their plan ready to go as well.
Mentioned, FPL says they've been preparing since the weekend, and they do anticipate some trees down, and also because the ground is still so wet from when Ian hit 6 weeks ago. However, they are ready to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
All right, we are also watching this. So many of you from here probably don't want to hear about this, but we got to talk about it. The Calusa Waterkeepers issuing a warning today about red tide creeping into our counties. These are photos they took near Cayo Costa and Charlotte Harbor, and they say there are also high levels of red tide reported near Sanibel and Fort Myers Beach. We know what this does to our communities and what it does to our economy, too. So we bring in Fox 4 meteorologist Andrew Shipley, because, Andrew, this red tide is a concern that actually stems from Hurricane Ian.
Yeah, that's right. So what happened is you had all of that nutrients from all the water that came down because of that rainfall from Hurricane Ian down our estuaries, and that really helped trigger what we saw the other day. Was it came down the estuaries and it fed into that red tide all those nutrients that we saw. So latest observational data did put up through Englewood down through Boca Grande those high observations of red tide present. And what we're going to see with Nicole is another dose of heavy rain up across the north, and that flows southward. It's kind of like what we saw with Ian. So Peace River, Horse Creek, Mayaca, which all flooded last time, are going to see those higher water levels again, increasing those nutrients. And then the other thing we're going to see is as Nicole pulls away, you'll get those winds pushing ashore, pushing that red tide back towards the coastline. So this is something we're going to be dealing with, likely amplified again from potentially Hurricane Nicole over the next couple of days, guys.
Tropical Storm Nicole continues with images out of Boynton Beach, Florida. This is located in Palm Beach County. Nicole is clearly gaining strength as it nears Florida's east coast. It could land as a Category 1 hurricane. Chris Wen is actually in Cocoa Beach, that's more central Florida, tracking the storm.
Florida is once again bracing for another devastating storm, and this time it's expected to be historic.
I urge Floridians statewide to stay indoors in a safe structure and away from the coastline.
Nicole is forecasted to hit Florida's east coast late Wednesday into Thursday as a Category 1 hurricane. That would make it the first time in 37 years that a hurricane has made landfall in the U.S. in November.
The most recent track shows that it will make landfall in Martin County.
The region can't catch a break as it's recovering from the devastation left behind by Hurricane Ian. It's now bracing for more damage, possible tornadoes, and widespread power outages,
including tropical storm force winds as far north as Jacksonville. Winds are the main concern with Nicole, but we also expect to see some heavy rains, the potential for flash flooding, and 3 to 5 feet of storm surge in some areas.
Evacuation orders are in place for several counties, with some airports shutting down operations in preparation. A total of 23 school districts are expected to close Thursday, as officials urge all Florida residents to take precautions before it's too late.
There may come a time during and after the storm that local governments cannot immediately send first responder into harm's way to assist you. So therefore, make sure you have everything that you may need.
In Cocoa Beach, Florida, I'm Chris Wynn reporting.
Now, as we have seen since the top of our hour today, we continue to monitor the deteriorating conditions, especially along Florida's East Coast tonight.
Our reporter, John Jensen, with our sister station WFTX-TV in West Palm Beach, just filed this report on the conditions at the Jensen Beach Causeway. Take a look.
We're under the Jensen Beach Causeway right now, and one of these big feeder bands are moving through just before 5 o'clock. The waves are kicking up, and in the distance we were looking to see if there were any boats that had come unmoored. Well, right now you can't see the boats. There were a few that we saw that were in place, because we understand in the past that this is an area where sometimes boats do come unmoored, but that's not the case right now. Again, just to remind you that the barrier island bridges were closed within the last hour by St. Lucie County law enforcement officials. So again, be safe out there, and we'll be reporting more from other locations. I'm John Shaden, back to you.
Also be careful out there. Thank you so much. And of course, he's showing you conditions on the other side of our state, but Tropical Storm Nicole is impacting our communities. In fact, Charlotte County now says school is canceled tomorrow just as a precaution due to Nicole. The district says all afternoon activities today will end by 6 p.m. and so far the district has not made a decision about school on Friday. You can trust us to keep you updated with that though. But the school district of Lee County has also canceled class tomorrow. The district says they're waiting until tomorrow afternoon to make a decision about school on Friday. And for those of you in Collier County, classes have been canceled tomorrow as well. Again, as a precaution due to Nicole, the district says all afternoon activities after 5 o'clock are canceled. The school district says schools will resume for an early dismissal day on Friday.
It has been a busy week coming off of the heels of election night last night. What's next for Republicans and Democrats now that the midterms are behind us? Coming up, a look at who turned out to vote gives us a glimpse into the future.
And if you look outside right now here in Southwest Florida, you can see the conditions are starting to change, but we want to give you this live look right now at Melbourne Beach here. You can see those waves crashing onto the shore right now. We're seeing those impacts of Tropical Storm Nicole already.
We are tracking that for you and all of its impacts. We'll see you on the other side of this break. As we are tracking the impacts of Nicole, the city of Northport is pausing debris pickup ahead of the storm. So that storm debris collection stopped at noon today. The city says it does expect to start picking up debris again on Friday. Now, for people living in DeSoto County who might need a place to stay during the storm, the Turner Center actually opened up as a shelter today. This is on Northeast Road Street in Arcadia. As a reminder, these shelters are a last resort, so they are asking you to bring your own food and blankets if you decide to go.
Also speaking of shelters, St. Matthew's House says it is planning to open 2 emergency shelters tonight. The Campbell Lodge shelter in Naples is now open as of 5 o'clock, and the Immokalee Friendship House shelter will open in about 20 minutes at 6. The nonprofit is also canceling its food distribution tomorrow that was scheduled for Center Point Church just ahead of the storm and taking those precautions. Amidst all of this, the election and Tropical Storm Nicole, we do want to remember that Veterans Day is on Friday. But the Mariner High School Junior ROTC and student body making sure to take time to honor veterans today.
We have so many here in Southwest Florida. So this morning, the members of the JROTC and student body at Mariner High School held their Salute to Veterans ceremony. They had about 600 cadets for this ceremony. They welcomed 4 World War II veterans, giving a chance to pay respects to all who have served in our armed forces. We here at Fox 4 want to do the same and say thank you to our veterans.
Honestly, it's very, very interesting to actually see them in person. When you just read it in a history class, it's kind of like you just read about it, you know, you're not really part of it. Whereas to hear you talk to them, you shake their hand, and it's like, wow, you are living history.
This has been quite an informative morning because I've never done this before, and these kids can do this in a military way. Really, it's something else. They're ready for anything that comes up now, I believe.
You can see they were so impacted and touched by this. Of course, the students will be showing their appreciation to teachers and faculty members who have also served our country as well. Good job to the Mariner High School cadets.
The student said it so perfectly, right? You are living history. All right, Election Day is behind us, but what comes next? Our national team is taking a look at how both parties are gearing up for the future of politics in the United States.
We're looking at what's next for both parties following the midterms and what these results will mean for the next election cycle and beyond. Chris Conti looks at why who turned out to vote gives us a glimpse into the future.
On Main Street America Wednesday, the political dust of Election Day is starting to settle after voters played their hand in the democratic process from coast to coast. But now what?
The Democrats need a huge political outreach program to Latino voters and other voters that feel neglected.
This is a closely divided nation. We've not seen any evidence that suggests we're moving away from that, and that's going to continue to be a challenge.
People thought there was a big red tide, and it was a pretty small tide.
To understand what exactly you, the voters, said, I gathered a handful of political experts today from across the country. We broke down larger trends nationally.
My immediate response is Donald who? I mean, Ron DeSantis has, won this resoundingly dominant victory in Florida. And I think it's already catapulted him to, talk of being the presidential nominee in 2024 for the Republican Party.
And what both parties need to consider moving forward, especially when it comes to states like Florida, no longer a Democratic stronghold.
Looking at what was going on in Florida, especially Miami-Dade County, Republicans are demonstrating that when it comes to turning out and appealing to many Hispanic, Latina voters, they're doing much better than they have been doing, and I think that's something worth watching as well.
While Democrats had a much better showing than expected, everyone I talked to today said to expect this in the next 2 years.
And now we're going to see things grind to a standstill.
It's just a deadlock. I mean, no movement at all. I mean, it's basically the country, the government is going to stand still.
A bright spot across the board, voter turnout. Most experts believe changes made during COVID will continue to drive record numbers of voters to the polls.
I think we're in a period where turnout's going to stay a little bit higher. And some of that is just basically it's been engineered, that they've made it as easy as they can to vote.
At the end of the day, though, voters in every community sent one clear message. We are still very much a divided nation.
So what this does open up not a surprise to any of us, right? But is that there are lots of challenges ahead, both for elected officials and for the political parties to figure out what they're doing and how they're going to do it.
In Boston, I'm Chris Conti.
Adidas today has cut its earnings forecast in half for the year by more than $250 million. That tops the news feed. The company says it's accounting for losses after ending its partnership with Ye, formerly Kanye West, after his anti-Semitic remarks. But Adidas predicts offsetting those costs next year, as it will no longer have to pay royalties and marketing fees for the brand. Well, Facebook's parent company, Meta, announced today it's cutting 11,000 jobs. That's 13% of the workforce. In a letter to employees today, CEO Mark Zuckerberg mentioned reasons like faltering revenue and broader tech industry woes. Meanwhile, Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk, has sold almost $4 billion worth of Tesla stock. That's according to regulatory filings. In all, Musk has sold more than $19 billion worth of Tesla stock since April, and he acknowledged a massive drop in revenue at Twitter. Well, the housing market slowdown is leading to layoffs. Real estate brokerage company Redfin says today it's closing its iBuying business. It acted as a large-scale home flipping operation. More than 860 workers will lose their job over it. That's about 13% of Redfin's staff. The company has now cut a total 27% of workers since April.
And we are already dealing with gusty winds here because of Tropical Storm Nicole, even though it's still hundreds of miles offshore. Overnight tonight into tomorrow morning, here in southwest Florida, we'll have gusts 40 to 50 miles per hour. We'll be dealing with some rainfall of 1 to 3 inches, but thankfully the threat for surge and tornadoes will stay low. We'll have a look at the timeline for what you can expect next.
All right, we are getting more perspective as to the impact from Tropical Storm Nicole. Again, remember, the tropical storm has not made landfall here in Florida yet. However, we are already seeing how powerful the storm is. Take a look inside of one of the homes in Volusia County. You can see the rough waves actually crashed into the shore, causing this beach eroding. The storm putting many homes along shore at risk of collapsing as well. It's just, we want to give you this perspective to kind of paint the picture as to what people on the other coast are already dealing with here in Florida.
A picture, unfortunately, Shari, we know all too well here in Southwest Florida as Nicole approaches. Also, Tropical Storm Nicole could strengthen to a Category 1 hurricane. It's possible. That's why the Orlando International Airport shut down operations at 4 o'clock, and the plan is to reopen once those weather conditions are safe. So it's already closed. Also, Orlando Sanford International, Melbourne Orlando International, and Daytona Beach International airports all already closed this afternoon. Tampa International, just up north for us, they're staying open as of right now, but they will monitor the storm's improvements.
All right, we want to take you back to the East Coast now. These pictures are coming in from Tropical Storm Nicole's impact in Boynton Beach there. As you can see, that water actually moving into that parking lot there from what looks like this marina area. Again, these images are kind of triggering for our community, as we've seen and we understand the impact of storm surge. However, one thing Fox 4 certified meteorologist Katie Walls has been telling us, that storm surge is not a concern for us right now here in Southwest Florida.
We are keeping you calm but informed every step of the way as we bring in certified meteorologist Katie Walls.
Exactly. We are going to be dealing with some impacts. We will be dealing with gusty winds, 40 to 50 miles per hour tonight into tomorrow morning. And also, we will have what I call squally weather. Scattered showers will be moving through. But the worst of this system that's going to be affecting the East Coast as well as Central Florida and even up into North Florida. So for us, we're on that lower impact side of Tropical Storm Nicole. Still a powerful tropical storm, almost a Category 1 hurricane. Right now, though, still a couple of hundred miles offshore. And you can see some of those outer rain bands now starting to work their way across the state. So still tracking some of these spotty rain showers from Port Charlotte through El Jabin, Murdoch, down to Placida now across the Cape Hayes Peninsula. And it does look like some of that will be heading down toward Boca Grande. At this point, though, the showers are on the lighter side. But as we see that system move ashore tonight, landfall is expected just after midnight near Fort Pierce. That's when we're going to be dealing with most of the potential for those scattered downpours. So at this point, we'll see most of that rainfall really in our interior communities and farther north, closer to where that will be tracking. Immokalee, Clewiston, LaBelle, for example, up through Glades into Highlands, DeSoto. That's where we could see 2 to 3 inches of rainfall. Meanwhile, Lee into Collier, we're expecting 1 to 2 inches. Now, because of these interior communities that were already hit so hard by Ian, flood watches are in effect right now for DeSoto, Glades, as well as Hendry, as another 2 to 3 inches of rainfall could lead to those flooding concerns. Now for the latest timing, let's send it over to meteorologist Andrew Shipley.
Yeah, that's right, Katie. We are continuing to track what is expected to become a hurricane near land. To look
Well, the Fox 4 weather team is working to keep you updated throughout the night, and Andrew Shipley will be joining Fox 4 certified meteorologist Katie Walls right here during Fox 4 News at 6 to bring you the latest. Also, Tropical Storm Nicole is making its way to the Florida coast, and we're tracking its impacts right here at home. Stick with us. Fox 4 News at 6 is coming up next.
Well, welcome to Fox 4 News at 6. The big top story on this Wednesday night is tracking Tropical Storm Nicole as it approaches our Florida's east coast. But we are looking at every single impact that it could have right here in Southwest Florida.
And she's Nadine Yanis. I'm Chris Earl. And again, to be clear, we have to say this from the outset. This will not be a direct hit here in Southwest Florida. This will not be a second case of Hurricane Ian 6 weeks ago. But watching the squalls and tropical storm force winds that could have an impact on many neighborhoods, lots of buildings, especially you think of places that are still very tender between tarps on roofs and other buildings that are still trying to get past what we saw 6 weeks ago.
It was exactly 6 weeks ago, and we are still recovering. But let's get a live look now at where Nicole is. The winds are roughly right there, just shy of a Category 1 storm.
And we're looking there at red tide levels, but again, that is approaching for the eastern coast of South Florida. And as we're all getting set for this, we've seen lots of preparations all throughout. I think it's time to bring in Fox 4 certified meteorologist Katie Wallace. Give us the very latest on the track for Nicole. Katie.
So just here within the last couple of moments from the National Hurricane Center, it has now officially been upgraded to a hurricane. So it is now officially a Category 1 hurricane as of 6 o'clock. Hurricane Nicole, now sustained winds of 75 miles per hour as it moves through the Bahamas. That westward progression continues, so that hasn't really changed much. It's moving around 12 miles per hour. Gusts to 85 miles per hour. Central pressure now down to 980 millibars. So even though this is simply a point on a map, we have to remember that those tropical storm force winds extend hundreds of miles from the storm center. So even though it is still a couple of hundred miles away from us, we're already starting to see those wind gusts pick up. So we're going to be dealing with tropical storm force winds here in Southwest Florida, but the worst of it, that will stay away from Southwest Florida. As of right now, we're expecting landfall later on tonight near Fort Pierce just after midnight. Thereafter, it's going to be curving off toward the north and west, moving through central Florida. So they're going to be dealing with most of the activity. But for us, we're going to be dealing with some gusty winds, 40 to 50 miles per hour tonight into tomorrow morning. We'll have some rain showers accumulating 1 to 3 inches. But thankfully, the risk for surge, the risk for tornadoes on the low side. We'll have a closer look at the timeline for when you can expect all of this to come to an end tomorrow next.
All right, Katie, thank you so much. But Nicole is already making its strength known tonight along Florida's east coast, bringing winds, rain, and waves that we have seen already hit the shorelines. Let's take a look at video from Flagler Beach. This is in central Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis says the storm is large and will impact most of the state. Now, you can see just how choppy it is here. Unfortunately, images we know all too well in Southwest Florida. This while the storm was still pretty far from the coast earlier today when this video was taken. And then there's this video from Stuart, Florida. This is a little further down along Florida's east coast. Flooding and storm surge prevalent there. This is video from Sand Spirit Park. It's a barrier island on the coast, very similar to maybe our Pine Island or Fort Myers Beach. And you can see in one of these clips, the waves even actually took out the planks, coming all the way up, flooding the streets there, pushing cars out. Again, Chris, all images we've seen.
Now let's take a look at Lantana. This is north of Fort Lauderdale, north of Boca Raton area, just off the coast. And you can see some of the high water there in this parking lot. And the park itself already taking on some high water hours before Nicole, now a hurricane, is a Category 1, is set to make landfall. We're also turning to our team of reporters. We have set up team coverage all throughout Southwest Florida to monitor the storm and the impacts, especially with so many of us picking up after Hurricane Ian, again, 6 weeks after that storm.
As you recall, people in Arcadia actually endured a lot of flooding from the Peace River in the days after Hurricane Ian, and Fox 4's Ryan Kruger is live there now as we anticipate any impacts. Ryan, what are you seeing tonight?
Area that everybody is keeping an eye on. This is the area where I'm at right now. We're basically where the Peace River meets Highway 70, not too far from downtown Arcadia. The interesting thing is the locals are telling me right now the water is actually pretty low. It normally comes up several feet behind me to where this dock kind of ends, so quite a bit of distance. Right now, according to the National Weather Service, the Peace River at this location, it's at about 6 feet. That is a solid 5 feet below flood stage. Flood stage here is at 11 feet. But the biggest concern is actually not what's going to happen tomorrow. It's what's going to happen in a couple of days, because that's exactly what happened when Hurricane Ian slammed into Southwest Florida. You may remember it was 6 weeks ago today. It was a Wednesday. Hurricane Ian blew through Southwest Florida. By that Saturday, so a full 3 days later, the Peace River here get this, it was cresting at 23 feet, almost 4 times higher than what it is right now, 12 feet above flood stage. I actually tried to get to Arcadia that weekend. This would have been the first weekend in October. There were parts of Arcadia, parts of DeSoto County that were completely cut off from the rest of Southwest Florida because the flooding was so bad. It was closing off roads. That's what the people here are concerned about. Now, coming up in 30 minutes at 6:30, what county leaders are doing to make sure that people can stay safe. But for now, we are live in Arcadia, DeSoto County. I'm Ryan Kruger, Fox 4.
We will be watching those rivers, Ryan. Thank you. Also in Fort Myers Beach, obviously one of the worst hit areas from Hurricane Ian. And now as Nicole approaches, our Elise Chingari is live, seeing how residents, many of them still living in tents or maybe their homes tarped, are preparing tonight. Elise.
Good evening. Absolutely one of the most devastated areas. I mean, you can see what it looks like today, as we were just hearing. I mean, 6 weeks ago is when Hurricane Ian hit here on Fort Myers Beach. And what we've been seeing here, we've been here all day, but the winds are starting to pick up on and off. No rain as of right now as we are tracking Nicole. But in the distance here, this is obviously a concern. These tarps that we are seeing on these homes, the homes that are still standing here on Fort Myers Beach. So obviously, when talking to neighbors, that's a concern. They don't want to deal with any possible flooding. You can still see this one construction crew that's out here still trying to work in the distance, trying to pick up that debris. Now, I want to take a second to tell you about some of the neighbors that we saw today. Now, they say they are staying. They say obviously they made it through Hurricane Ian. They're not anticipating too much with Nicole. They say possibly some rain. So they're trying to move, objects that are outside their home inside that could possibly be damaged or picked up by high winds they could experience. But the video that we're showing you, people are still living in tents here on Fort Myers Beach, also on San Carlos Island. So of course that's also a concern with high winds. And some people they're leaving to either take better shelter, but some are staying. Even some of those shrimpers that we've been covering here on Fox 4, they say that they are going to stay and see how this is going to be over the next few hours. But still, a lot of people here in total shock from the devastation. James, who's lived here for 17 years, adding some perspective about Nicole, saying that's a scary thing living here in Florida, these kind of storms.
I mean, it's going to flood over there. It always does. So, I don't know. Move to the other coast. Is it better? Which side's better? I don't know. Either way, it sucks. You get used to it. It's tropical. It's beautiful. Oh, but it could kill you. So, you just got to know that living here, I guess.
Now, even though he and many others here say living in Florida, you can expect these storms and the possibilities of hurricanes, people did not expect this kind of damage that we are still seeing here on Fort Myers Beach from Hurricane Ian. So again, a lot of people I spoke with today, they say that they are staying. They're just hoping that maybe it's just a little bit of rain, maybe a potential for some winds, but hopefully nothing too serious. As you can see, there's still a lot of cleanup here in Southwest Florida. Of course, we'll remain here on Fort Myers Beach and update you on the conditions that we are seeing. Live here on Fort Myers Beach, Elise Chingari, Fox 4.
Thanks, Elise. Now moving north to Cape Coral, another spot with plenty of blue tarps on top of roofs and debris all throughout the roadways after Hurricane Ian. Fox 4 certified meteorologist Katie Walls also notes that Cape Coral should expect wind speeds of about 40 to 50 miles per hour as Nicole passes through the state. And the concern for so many who might have homes like this right now is how will those blue tarps hold? And also we have some viewer video sent in from South Cape Coral. You can see this. It's along Chiquita Boulevard, southwest. You can see that tarp already waving in the wind. And Nicole, while it's not here yet, but reminding us all of the hurricane forcing so many families out of their homes and into other places to live. And now also some families telling our Caitlin Knapp that's also putting them in a real bind. So for more on this, let's now bring in Caitlin as she's been in Cape Coral today focusing on that.
Yeah, the Southeast Cape Coral couple has been living in a tent since Hurricane Ian. They're actually living in the tent behind their house. And now with Hurricane Nicole on the way to Southwest Florida, they're trying to weigh out the options that they do have, and that's kind of few and far between right now.
This is our lovely tent right here.
we've been living in for like 42 nights.
Day and night for David Rogers and his girlfriend Lenny.
We don't have a second home. That is our second home, the tent.
A tent they're forced to sleep in as they work to rebuild their home after Ian.
I think the smell is out of the house. I think the 2x4s have dried in the last 40 days.
Days in a tent.
I put it under the lanai roof to try to stay more dry.
And now, waiting for Nicole to hit tonight.
I'm hoping we don't have any more damage.
And with the thought of even more damage,
we'll move the mattress, air mattresses inside, because we don't need to deal with that.
It's a situation Mother Nature is forcing them to take head on.
We're doing the best we can.
With an optimistic attitude.
We'll get through it.
Now, right after my interview with Rogers, he decided to take down his tent and get everything inside. He said that he's just going to ride out the storm in there, try to keep the windows open for as long as possible. But at this point, it's really just riding out Hurricane Nicole as long as it passes through our area pretty quickly. Reporting live in Cape Coral, Caitlin Knapp, Fox 4.
And staying in Lee County, some people living in Harlem Heights near McGregor and Gladiolus also spent this day stocking up on food to be all set for Nicole, again, now a hurricane.
This was a really hard hit area. It's hard to hear that people are still dealing with tarps and tents tonight. It's the reality 6 weeks after Hurricane Ian. Let's go ahead and bring in our Fox 4's Colton Chavez. He returned back to the Harlem Heights community, and he's been covering that area ever since Ian. And that sense of getting ready, Colton, really gives us a sense of just how many people and how we're feeling tonight ahead.
That's absolutely right, and I think what everybody's wondering right now is what's it feeling like right now? Well, not wearing a jacket, no rain coming down, a little bit of wind, so that's some good news. But talking with people in Harlem Heights, as Nadine said, they've gone through a lot, and today they told me no matter what Nicole turns into, whether it be a storm, a rain event, whatever it is, they would rather be over prepared than anything else.
If you're going to eat spaghetti.
Arming themselves with food, people living in Harlem Heights hoping for the best but preparing if Nicole brings the worst.
People are still trying to rebuild, and we got another storm. How do we deal with that?
A question Victoria Bacude tells me she's not going to wait around to figure out as she grabs items during a Gladiolus food pantry community giveaway. For Victoria, she tells me she has already had such a hard time dealing with Ian's aftermath. When word of Nicole started to spread, she tells me, like many, she was instantly concerned.
I have a tarp, I have a bunch of debris still around, piles laid around. I'm still trying to repair my roof. I have lots of shingles missing. It's a mess.
A mess Harlem Heights nonprofits like Adventure and Missions have been trying to avoid days before Nicole's arrival. As member Chris Horvath showed me around their command center filled with donations, he says crews have gone from rebuilding homes to protecting them.
We shifted gears preparing for it, making sure that tarps were secured, going on homes that didn't have tarps yet, making sure that they had tarps to cover the things that were missing on their homes so they didn't get additional water damage. And then just securing debris piles that are still laying around that haven't been picked up yet.
And I want to quickly touch on that issue of having enough tarps and keeping them on their homes, just like these ones that you see behind me here. Now, coming up on Fox 4 News at 10 o'clock, you won't believe the amount of tarps in Harlem Heights that this nonprofit tells me they had to work on to get ahead of Nicole. I'll have that story for you coming up on Fox 4 News at 10 o'clock. Chris, Nadine?
Thanks a lot, Colton. Fox 4 is also so committed to watching out for you during weather like this. You can find our live coverage on multiple platforms. Just connect with the QR code on the right side of the screen to keep watching our live stream on your phone or on a smart TV. As a reminder, we'll be watching out for you all night long. We will alert you if something urgent develops with Nicole. Fox 4 News will be live tonight from 10 p.m. to at least midnight when the conditions could keep deteriorating. Fox 4 News will also start earlier tomorrow, 5 a.m. to help you stay safe as the center of this hurricane passes close by in our northern parts of our viewing area. And also, Nicole could turn power off yet again, and we do know most of you don't want to endure that again.
Yeah, that's right. So our Shari Armstrong asked what LCEC is doing to keep the service on. We'll tell you that after the break. Katie.
And the center of Nicole still about 100 miles offshore, but already we're starting to feel our winds pick up here in Southwest Florida. Even though we won't be taking a direct hit, we will see impacts. We'll talk about that timeline next.
And thank you for keeping it here with Fox 4 as we take a live look from Fort Pierce along the east coast of Florida. As we're all watching for Hurricane Nicole, now a Category 1 as it approaches, as Katie Walls said, about 100 miles off of the shore. And we'll be tracking this for you all throughout the night, as well as throughout tomorrow morning, Thursday, on Fox 4.
Now, one of the concerns you might have right now ahead of Nicole is, will my power stay on, especially after Hurricane Ian? Well, Fox 4 anchor Shari Armstrong is keeping up with the two big providers of electricity right here in our area. We're talking LCEC and Florida Power and Light. And Shari, FPL warned customers today to go ahead and expect those outages.
So plan accordingly. Have your batteries together, charge your phone. That's exactly right, Nadine. The company says a big part of that is related to Hurricane Ian. They're concerned about weakened tree roots. Winds that normally wouldn't be a concern could more easily knock over trees or other debris. Now, FPL says they've already started to respond to those impacted on the East Coast, but here in Southwest Florida, we are seeing a few outages. Let me show you what I'm actually seeing right now. I've been keeping track of this all day. This morning, LCEC reported just about 140 outages. As of right now, you can see at the bottom of your screen, they're only reporting 48 in Southwest Florida. This is a welcoming number for us, and we're hoping that this number does not go up, but I'm keeping a close eye on it for you. Also, this FPL is reporting nearly 700 outages, and a majority of those outages are in Collier and Lee counties. That's a big jump from what I was seeing this morning. So you can see here why they told us this morning that anything is possible.
One thing that we have learned is that Mother Nature is unpredictable. I would strongly recommend that folks not get fixated on whether or not this is a tropical storm or a hurricane, or where the line on the map shows it's coming onshore.
Right, that's something we definitely learned from Hurricane Ian. Now, both companies say they're prepared to respond once conditions are safe for their teams, but I am monitoring outages in our community, and I will have the latest throughout the night right here on Fox 4. In the newsroom, Shari Armstrong, Fox 4.
Thank you, Sharon. As this hurricane moves closer to reaching Florida, it's also leading to a chain reaction across the state.
Yeah, our Scott Withers is on Cocoa Beach in Central Florida with more on this tonight.
Winds are really picking up, and so are the waves here at Cocoa Beach. You can see them slamming into the famous pier here. That's because Nicole is out there churning and intensifying in the Atlantic and making a beeline towards the state of Florida. Now, this is not going to be a powerful storm, but it is going to be a large storm. Take a look at the satellite. You can see its windshield. It's going to cover most of the state of Florida, so we're going to have tropical storm weather for a few days out here. That's why people up and down the coast, they are filling those sandbags. We could see a storm surge of up to 5 feet for most of the Florida coast and the Georgia coast and parts of the South Carolina coast. Add on top of that up to 6 inches of rain in some areas. We're going to see some flash flooding issues, so that's why those sandbags are so important. Here on the Space Coast, we're just a few miles from the Kennedy Space Center. They had to scrub the launch of the Artemis rocket that was supposed to be for Monday. They're pushing that back because these winds are going to be a problem for several days across the state of Florida. The good news is that rocket is not going to be damaged by any winds. So where is this going? Take a look at the cone here. There's not much of a show up in just a few hours. It's going to go across the Bahamas and then come ashore, we think, right above, just to the north of West Palm Beach. Then it's going to cross the state pretty quickly out into the Gulf, then turn around, head back through North Florida into Georgia. And by the weekend, late Friday, Saturday, it's going to be up in the Virginia areas, at least the remnants are. If this does come ashore as a hurricane, it will only be the second time in history that a hurricane has made landfall on Florida's Atlantic coast in the month of November. I'm meteorologist Scott Withers in Cocoa Beach, Florida.
You can definitely see conditions deteriorate there. Let's go ahead and get a better look at what Scott Withers was just reporting in waves and wind reportedly beating up the East Coast shorelines. This is video coming in from Daytona Beach. This is in Volusia County.
And the reason that we'll focus on this is because of what happened there 6 weeks ago when Hurricane Ian at the backside after crossing across the state of Florida. So many places there is still tender in that recovery.
Right,
so
the dunes are gone.
And we talk about with roofs and with structures. Lots of people in Daytona Beach also also checking out the impact. As now we bring in Fox 4 certified meteorologist Katie Walls with the very latest.
Exactly. So that storm surge along the East Coast will be a big factor there for sure. The beach erosion as well. Thankfully for us in Southwest Florida, those are two factors we don't have to worry about. We're going to have some gusty winds tonight, 40 to 50 miles per hour. We'll also have some rainfall as the system crosses into central Florida. The latest from the National Hurricane Center, it's officially a Category 1 hurricane. As it crossed over Grand Bahama Island, it did officially intensify to a 75-mile-per-hour storm. So it is a weak Category 1 hurricane, but at this point we aren't expecting it to maintain that strength as it heads toward Fort Pierce late tonight. So right around midnight or just after, that's when it's forecast to make landfall, then cut across central Florida and curve off toward Georgia into South Carolina. So what can we expect? Well, unfortunately, with some of these gusty winds and with precariously leaning trees, we could have some isolated power outages. Just want to give you a heads up. Go ahead and get those flashlights out. Get those batteries ready to rock. Look around your home and go ahead and secure any debris that could possibly blow around. I know all my porch furniture is now safely inside. So again, we're expecting 40 to 50 mile-per-hour winds tonight into tomorrow morning, but by lunchtime, this system is off toward our north and away from us. As of right now, the center of circulation is still about 100 miles offshore, but it will continue its westward progression, again, eventually making landfall toward Fort Pierce. Most of that rainfall really affecting the East Coast right now. Meanwhile, for us, just a couple of showers, but as it moves onshore, that's when most of our rain will be moving in. So scattered showers are expected for us, especially tonight, but for now, very light rain showers working their way from warm Mineral Springs to Inglewood here across Venice into Sarasota County. In terms of how much rainfall we could see, unsurprisingly, the closer you are to that center track, the closer you are to Fort Pierce, for example, in central Florida. That's where we could see 2 to 3 inches of rain across Hendry, Glades, up through DeSoto County. Meanwhile, Lee, Collier, expecting generally 1 to 2 inches of rainfall. Now, because of our interior communities, because it's where we are expecting those 2 to 3 inch totals, and because these spots were hard hit by Ian in terms of rainfall, especially up in DeSoto County, where we picked up about 1.5 feet of rainfall, flood watches are in effect for DeSoto, Glades, as well as Hendry until tomorrow afternoon. So a closer look at that timeline heading into this evening. Scattered showers are expected, and then notice those showers kind of picking up in terms of coverage heading into the overnight. By 3 a.m., widespread rain expected as that system moves off into central Florida. 7 a.m., still scattered rain showers, still rather windy, but by the time we hit 12 noon, Nicole's lifting off toward the north away from us, and we'll start to see some improvements. Those winds certainly expected to taper off heading into tomorrow afternoon. We'll have a couple of lingering rain showers around tomorrow afternoon, but they too will gradually end as well. In terms of those wind gusts, already today they've been running in the 30s, so we're certainly going to be dealing with those gusty winds. And when we talk about tropical storm force winds, we're talking about winds of at least 39 miles per hour. So that's what we need to expect for most of our viewing area under those tropical storm warnings at this hour. Hendry, Glades, Lee, Charlotte, as well as DeSoto into Sarasota counties. Collier County, though, thankfully, I don't think you're going to be dealing with winds quite on that level. Now, behind this system, we're going to be drying things out, much lower humidity, more comfortable air, kind of similar to what we experienced with Ian. Well, that's what we're going to be experiencing over the weekend. Mostly sunny, dropping those highs into the upper 70s by Sunday.
Thank you, Katie. Class ended early in some Southwest Florida school districts today, and class might not be back in session until next week.
Of course, all of this depends on where your student goes to school here in Southwest Florida. We're breaking it down for you next on Fox 4 News at 6. Well, we are keeping an eye out for any major changes that you should be aware of because of Nicole's approach.
Also for schools and schedules for the rest of the week. Earlier today, Lee County School District leaders notified Fox 4 that Thursday's class schedule, so tomorrow, canceled. The district says it is waiting to make a call on class for Friday. That's almost the exact plan for Charlotte schools as well. Each county has made the call to cancel class on Thursday, but Charlotte County schools have yet to make a call on Friday. Collier, DeSoto, Glades, Hendry County schools all say they plan to reopen on Friday.
And as we continue to track Nicole tonight, we are turning to our team of journalists all along the East Coast and right here at home to help us do it.
That team coverage from all throughout Southwest Florida on the way after the break. Stay with Fox 4. Including in LaBelle, where our Yvette Sanchez will join us live, showing us what it looks like now in other parts of Lee County, also closest to Nicole's path. And Nicole is getting closer to making landfall here in Florida. We're tracking the progress live. Thanks for keeping it here tonight on Fox 4 News at 6. I'm Chris Earl.
And I'm Nadine Yanis. Exactly 6 weeks from Hurricane Ian, which is why we are monitoring any impact we can have. This storm has been building and it's expected to make landfall on Florida's East Coast on the other side of our state later tonight. So let's go ahead and get a live look from our Fox 4 weather radar showing where Nicole is right now. It's over the Bahamas, where it became a Category 1 hurricane officially just less than a half an hour ago. This will make landfall again on Florida's East Coast tonight before then making its way up and through central Florida.
So now let's bring in Fox 4 certified meteorologist Katie Walls with the latest as we're looking at the timing and the intensity here, Katie.
That's right. So thankfully, the brunt of the storm will be away from southwest Florida. Nonetheless, it has A huge wind field. We're talking about tropical storm force winds extending 420 miles from the storm's center. That's why today was so breezy, and that's why we're going to be dealing with some wind gusts overnight. So 40 to 50 mile per hour winds expected tonight into tomorrow morning. Also, as it moves ashore, we're going to be dealing with some of that rainfall. So we are expecting 1 to 3 inches of rain as that system moves into central Florida tonight. As for the threat for surge tornadoes, that will stay very low here in southwest Florida. So wherever you see that yellow, that's tropical storm force winds. That's winds of at least 39 miles per hour. Notice it really encompasses most of the state. So overnight tonight, we're going to be dealing with those tropical storm force winds into early tomorrow morning. Thereafter, that storm starts to head more into central Florida and then head toward the Big Bend, and that's going to take the winds with it. So by 11 a.m., tropical storm force winds are out of southwest Florida, but we're still going to be dealing with some remnant rain showers. We'll take a closer look at that timeline coming up next.
Thanks a lot, Katie. And keeping with that team coverage tonight, Nicole is not going to be a direct hit like we saw with Hurricane Ian in late September, but it still could lead to some very intense conditions, especially for our northern area viewers.
Especially in the next couple of days, because we know those areas, one of them is still recovering from Hurricane Ian and could be impacted by Nicole. We're talking about Arcadia and DeSoto County. You can see the flooding there after Ian was catastrophic, after those rivers rose in the days following Hurricane Ian. And tonight, with wind and rain, they could be impacted again.
Fox News' Ryan Kruger joins us live, and Ryan, DeSoto County leaders have also opened up an emergency shelter for people to have a place to stay.
Yeah, and they are warning folks, though, Chris and Nadine, that shelter, they do have limited space. They're also telling people it's really cold there. So if you are thinking about going, or maybe you have some friends or relatives who are, make sure they are aware they are prepared for that. It's going to be at the Turner Center off Roan Road. Let me tell you the other thing that they are definitely concerned about tonight. So I am right here on the Peace River, and believe it or not, locals are telling me this is actually really low. So we're by the boat dock. Normally, the boat ramp, I'm sorry. Normally, it's a lot higher than this. It's about 6 feet right now. Flood stage is at 11 feet. Here's the biggest concern. After Ian came through 6 weeks ago, right? It came through on a Wednesday. It wasn't until Saturday, a full 3 days later, that Arcadia really felt the brunt of it, right? Once all of that flooding in other locations started to drain down the Peace River, that is when the Peace River right here in Arcadia near Highway 70, not far from downtown, get this, crested at a whopping 23 feet. That is 12 feet above flood stage, basically 4 times higher than what it is right now. The good news is it is not expected to get that high with this. National Weather Service is expecting that it will crest on Monday morning. So again, a solid several days after the storm comes through, it will crest, they are saying, at about 10.5 feet. So just underneath that flood stage. But county leaders are already telling folks who live in these low-lying areas, be prepared, not just tomorrow, but for the next couple of days, because all of that drainage, when it makes its way down here, history has shown that this area can sustain some definite flooding. That is the scene from Arcadia. I'm Ryan Kruger, Fox 4.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. We certainly saw that 6 weeks ago along the Peace River, and it's not on shore yet, but we've already seen, Nicole, now a hurricane lead to some significant damage along Florida shorelines.
It's already making some big changes across state as well. Let's go ahead and take you through one of the biggest barometers here for a storm's strength is how the Central Florida theme parks react to this. And listen to this, Disney, Universal, they both have already made the call to close today ahead of the storm. Both of these companies say they are going to evaluate Nicole's progress before making the call on when to reopen tomorrow. But if you're a Floridian, you know the theme park's a huge barometer there. Also, another response in Central Florida, the Orlando International Airport has closed. It's actually been closed since 4 o'clock. That's when officials made the call to shut down all operations until it is safe to fly again. 2 other airports in the area have also closed early in Central Florida today.
And we'll also move back to the coast along Daytona Beach. Take a look at some of the damage here. This is one of the beach houses and lifeguard shacks right there at Daytona Beach. These buildings partially collapsed because of some of the waves that have been really increasing along the shoreline there. Daytona Beach already hit from Ian when it came through 6 weeks ago on the back end, as people are still in recovery mode there.
And these images could be triggering for so many of us because they're so familiar from what we did see from Hurricane Ian, especially on Fort Myers Beach. That was one of the hardest hit areas. So what can be expected? What's the feeling of Fort Myers Beach tonight? Well, let's get right over to Fox 4's Elise Chingary. She is live on the beach to see not only what the area looks like, but at least people are still living in tents out there.
Exactly. Some people are still living on tents here on Fort Myers Beach, especially a lot of the people we spoke with last week, those shrimpers who remained on those boats and survived Hurricane Ian. So what we're experiencing here on Fort Myers Beach, not any rain. It was drizzling earlier around 3, 4 o'clock, but that stopped. We are seeing that the rain is starting to pick up. We're definitely feeling that. Now, some concerns of neighbors could be the possible rain. Obviously, you see here over my shoulder how a lot of people are still cleaning up from Hurricane Ian. So, of course, that could just make things more complicated if they experience more rain or heavy winds here throughout the area. But back to when we're talking about those tarps that we are seeing throughout the area on top of homes that survived Hurricane Ian, and then back to those tents that are blowing in the wind, and talking with those shrimpers earlier. You know, one of them I spoke with, Clearly Jones. He told me that he's waiting over the next few hours to decide whether he will head out or not. But basically, he hopes this storm is nothing compared to anything like we've experienced in September.
I don't want to see it again. Yeah. It's demonstrating, you know. If you have another one like this, it'll be trouble. It's supposed to go up in all these coasts. You know, that's what they say so far. You know, so we're waiting to see.
And Nadine and Chris, I know you were mentioning some airports closing throughout central Florida. We did see a plane fly above us, a few of them just about 40 minutes ago. And then I also am following along with the town of Fort Myers Beach. They are suggesting that you follow along with Alert Lee. That's the county's site that will text you any kind of alerts. They're also pushing for you to, of course, stay with your local media. So as we continue to give you updates of what we are experiencing, but what we can tell you here on Fort Myers Beach, just experiencing that wind. But of course, a lot of devastation here, and neighbors just concerned they don't want to have to experience much more with Hurricane Nicole. Live here on Fort Myers Beach, Elise Chingari, Fox 4.
Thanks, Elise. And Katie Walls noted just how wide this was, more than 400 miles from the storm center, feeling the impact of the wind. So plenty of people are concerned about those loose objects that might be out there from flying around. Every city still picking up trash from Hurricane Ian 6 weeks ago. Fox 4's Caitlin Knapp is live in Cape Coral, where there's still debris on the side of the road, as we take a look at some of the video from Cape Coral, one of those dump sites.
Yeah, this is actually one of those dump sites off the skyline right here. They bring things like debris and tree trunks to this particular area. Crews were out here earlier today. I saw a lot of dump trucks as well, bringing debris to this particular site. When it started to get dark, that's when crews started to clear out. We're assuming Hurricane Nicole is already playing a factor with that as far as what time they stopped today. A Cape Coral homeowner told me a little bit earlier that he's concerned about Hurricane Nicole because of the debris that is still waiting to be picked up in the area. Now, this is in southeast Cape Coral, one of the areas hit hard by Hurricane Ian. Homeowners had to rip out drywall, throw away furniture, leaving it on the side of the road for cleanup crews. Bob Turo says he thinks the city has done a good job cleaning it up, but the trash keeps coming as we keep rebuilding.
People are coming back every day. I have another neighbor down the street from Canada, just got back. He's just pulling stuff out of his house. As they just keep running around, cleaning up, there's always a new pile at the moment.
Turo says he's going to make sure he brings in all his outdoor furniture, and you should do the same. Winds will play a factor during Hurricane Nicole, so either bring your stuff inside or strap it down if possible. And if you are able to do so, I know it's dark out right now, but double check on that tarp. I saw a lot of sandbags dangling, as well as a lot of tarps just kind of parachuting in the air. So if you do feel comfortable doing that right now, you might want to go ahead and make sure that tarp is strapped down. We're going to be out here all night tracking Hurricane Nicole and bring you the latest on air and online at fox4now.com. Reporting live in Cape Coral, Caitlin Knapp, Fox 4.
Some great advice there, Caitlin. Also heartbreaking for all the folks who still have tarps up. But one area that is also supposed to be impacted by Hurricane Nicole is in Hendry County. Chris, this is further east of us, and that's where the hurricane was making landfall on the East Coast.
And Fox 4's Yvette Sanchez in the county seat in LaBelle in Hendry County, tracking how Hurricane Nicole could impact that part of Florida.
That's right. Actually, as you guys just said, I am in LaBelle here at Barron Park, which is just off of the main road. If you take Main Street all the way down, you get here to Barron Park, which is right here on the Caloosahatchee River. And the reason why we came into these interior communities is because they were some of the hardest hit areas during Ian. And coming tonight, who knows what could happen. So we're here to stand by to give you guys the conditions. But I do want to show you the water here on the Caloosahatchee. Now, if you can go ahead and take a look right here, the water has been pretty calm since we've been here. We've been here since around, I would say, 5 o'clock. The water has picked up a little bit, but not too much, not anything to cause any type of concern. So we have seen people here out tonight. Right now, no activity. It's actually been quite dry, little sprinkles, very minimal wind. And actually right now there are some cars parked right next to us. People are over here around an awning. They're walking around, but we don't know what it's going to look like later on tonight. It is expected to pick up to 40 miles an hour of wind, up to 1 to 2 inches of rain. But we will go ahead and keep you guys updated on what we see out here and the conditions here in LaBelle in Hendry County. But for right now, Yvette Sanchez, Fox 4.
Thank you for that report from Hendry County. Also, the Colusa waterkeepers today putting out a warning about red tide creeping into our counties. These are actually photos that they took near Cayo Costa and Charlotte Harbor. They say that there are also high levels of red tide now reported near Sanibel and Fort Myers Beach as well. So let's go ahead, bring in Fox 4 meteorologist Andrew Shipley. Andrew, this is a big concern that still stems from Hurricane Ian. All that water, the nutrients flowing into our area.
No, absolutely, and that's what we did see during Hurricane Ian was all that rainwater that was up in Orlando area that flowed southward, and we are seeing that expected to continue after Nicole. And take a look at some of those videos shot today, and we continue to see these blotches of red tide causing fish kills like you see there on your screen. Those are fish that have been killed from the red tide that's forming out there. So I do want to give you an update on some of the latest numbers that we've seen. This is from last Friday. We're going to get updated again this coming Friday, but high concentrations of red tide from Englewood down through Boca Grande, but satellite imagery does have it coming back around Sanibel. So we're continuing to follow that, but with another heavy dose of rain across central Florida, that means those same rivers like the Monaca River, Horse Creek, Peace River, going to be flushed again with those nutrients that will be pushed back into the Gulf, which will help feed additional red tides. Obviously, something we're going to continue to follow with the after effects of Hurricane Nicole. We'll break down more of your forecast with Nicole. That coming right up.
Thanks, Andrew. Fox 4 is so committed to watching out for you during weather like this. You can find our live coverage across multiple platforms. Just connect with the QR code on the right side of your screen to keep watching our live stream on your phone or smart TV.
Also, Lee County residents, they're worried about the debris after Ian. We talked about it as well in Cape Coral. Nicole could actually cause another concern tonight.
And still ahead, we take those concerns to county officials. Katie.
The center of Nicole still about 100 miles offshore, but we're already feeling those gusty winds here. Coming up, we'll take a look at when you can expect the strongest winds to arrive where you live.
And debris is not just an eyesore, a source of a strong stench in times of a storm like Hurricane Nicole. The concern is danger, how debris could also turn into projectiles.
Yeah, as we're talking about this possibly being a wind event for us, that's why our Dan Grossman went to city leaders to find out what they're doing to limit the risk of any flying debris. Here's what they told him.
One of the things we've been hearing most from folks around here is what's going to happen to these debris piles. While the winds here in Southwest Florida are not going to be what they are on the East Coast, the concern is this debris will blow into the street, back into yards, erasing weeks of hard work from Ian cleanup. We reached out to Lee County Public Works to see if there's anything that can be done to minimize that risk, and they said not really. Some people have moved their debris into their garage if they have the room, but with so many large objects, Lee County Public Works says tarps might not be the best bet since they can get blown off too. Public Works said it's kind of a wait-and-see approach. Same with residents we spoke with earlier who said they aren't so worried about their safety with Nicole, rather the hard work they've put in since Ian.
It's a little nerve-wracking for sure. Even 3 inches of water, you know, people just got the mud out. They don't want the mud to come back in. People have been working so hard over the past month. To be set another month behind would be devastating. I don't think that there's a safety issue with this one coming up, but definitely more of just like, if it happens, but it's gonna suck.
Public Works says they have been cleaning up and picking up debris since the week of Ian, but they have millions of cubic yards to still take care of and only so many facilities. They said there are satellite sites that are open if you want to take your own debris in. Those are located at Brooks Park, the Shell Factory, as well as the San Carlos Utility Site. They're open daily from 7 in the morning to 5:30 at night. In Fort Myers, Dan Grossman, Fox 4.
And really the note of this, now that it is a hurricane, it can evolve every 10 or 15 minutes. Always important to stay on top of this.
That's right. As we bring in certified meteorologist Katie Walls, we also want to make sure that we are calm but keeping people informed, because our area is still recovering from Hurricane Ian, and this is the last thing we want to see.
And one thing I do want to point out, unlike Ian, a little bit of a wobble is not going to make much of a difference here, because this storm has tropical storm force winds extending 400 miles from the center. So even if it were to wobble just a bit, we're still going to be dealing with some gusty winds tonight into tomorrow. So heads up there, 40 to 50 mile per hour winds tonight. Most of those midnight into the early morning period. Likewise, rainfall expecting 1 to 3 inches. But for us here, surge tornadoes, those threats will stay minimal. Where we could see those tropical storm force winds, it's really most of the state. As I mentioned, the wind field on Nicole is just huge. Notice those hurricane force winds really concentrated right there along the East Coast near Fort Pierce, where landfall is expected tonight. So we'll be dealing with those tropical storm force winds tonight into tomorrow morning. But by 11 a.m., all of that is lifting off toward our north, and we'll be seeing those winds improve. Now, as the system moves onshore, we're going to be dealing with some of this heavier rainfall as well. So just how much rainfall could we see? The closer you are to the center, the more rain expected. So Hendry, Glades, Highlands, DeSoto, that's where we could see 2 to 3 inches of rainfall. Otherwise, Charlotte, Lee, Collier, generally expecting 1 to 2 inches of rain. Now, because of our interior communities expecting a bit more, Hendry, Glades, as well as DeSoto, that's where we could have some flooding concerns. So again, 2 to 3 inches of rainfall expected here in spots that were hit hard by Ian. And speaking of county by county, we want to bring in meteorologist Andrew Shipley with the latest on what you can expect where you live.
Yeah, that's right, Katie. Let's time out the storm first, and then we'll go to those county by counties for you. By 7 o'clock here tonight, we do expect that this slowly get to that outer edge over Lake Okeechobee and continuing to slide here towards the Southwest Florida. So even 11 o'clock here tonight, we could start to see some tropical downpours, that squally weather as we get on that very southern side of Nicole, moving on through the morning hours. But you'll notice by 7 o'clock, it's already lifting on out of here and pretty much done by noontime. But let's talk about these county by county impacts. Here in Lee County through tomorrow morning, we're looking at a general 1 to 2 inches of rain, maybe an isolated spot, mainly inland or on the north side, northeast side of the county. Maybe isolated spots up to 3 inches. For the most part, 10 to 20 miles an hour, gusts up to about 35. But the further north you get, the closer to that center, you could see a little bit more impact. Charlotte County, 1 to 3 inches of rain, maybe some isolated spots up to 4 inches or so, but winds 15 to 25, gusts about 35. Sarasota County, a little bit further north, you're looking at that same 1 to 3 inches, gusts a little bit higher, right around 40. You're also maybe that backside could see a slight surge of 1 to 3 feet, but again, nowhere near what we saw on Ian. How about DeSoto County, inland, 1 to 2 inches of rain, up to 3 inches in isolated locations, gusts up to about 40 miles an hour. And then Henry County, a lot less rain. We're talking half an inch to an inch of rain, maybe gusts up to about 35 miles an hour. And then in Glades County, you're looking at 1 to 3 inches, maybe up to isolated spots, up to about 4 inches with wind gusts about 45 miles an hour. But once Nicole moves on out of here, well, look at this as we head in towards the weekend. Cooler air moves in, drier air, very similar to what we had after post-Ian. High temperatures in the 70s, overnight lows and near 60 degrees.
And a reminder, Fox 4 will be watching out for you throughout the night with extended coverage as Nicole makes landfall overnight. We'll be live from 10 to midnight, and then we have a special newscast starting earlier at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning.
And thanks for joining us here on Fox 4 News at 6. Stay safe.
We'll see you at 10. Well, welcome to Fox 4 News at 6. The big top story on this Wednesday